Well, welcome back to the course, and welcome back to the final piece on client acquisition. And today we're going to talk about search engine optimization, and we're going to talk about optimizing your site for search. Increasingly, people are going to Google first. While Bing is gaining market share, although I don't know what the current numbers are, it could be that they surged and now they're dropping back down. But for the most part, what people are searching on is either the A9 Yahoo platform, which is driven by Google, or Google itself. That's where people go. And so Google still has a vast majority of the searches on the web. I don't know what the current numbers are, but last I checked, it was something like 65%. So a vast majority. So you really want to pay attention to what Google is paying attention to. They're also pretty much the only game in town for PPC or pay-per-click advertising. Pay-per-click advertising is basically the ads that you see that are featured. There's two or three of them over on the side on any search, or they're the top two results and they have sort of a yellowish background currently. Those are, pay-per-click advertising. Somebody has paid for those search terms that you're using, and they're paying a certain amount per click. And we'll talk about that further. But Google AdWords is basically what you call them, but it's pay-per-click advertising is the genre. And as a side note, if you haven't Googled your own name recently, you should, and have fun with that. And you really hope that your own site is number one for your own name. But you want to see what other people are saying about you or what they're not saying about you. And you also want to make sure that your site is at least optimized for your own name. Your clients and prospects certainly will. I've had clients who actually researched me for a couple of days first and let me know, and they said, "Gosh, I couldn't find out anything bad about you on the internet, which is a little spooky." I said, "Well, I'm sure that'll happen eventually." But the point is that clients are always going to be Googling you, so you should to see what they're seeing. Anyway, you want your site to be more than just an expanded business card. You want people who have not heard of you or met you directly to be able to find you. Every so often, I sign a one-on-one client to a long-term contract who just happened to find me on the web. But regardless of what some consultants will tell you, there's no way to get you to the first page of Google unless you have great content. So I'm sure you've received the marketing through your site, through your contact form. I know I have, where they're talking about how they could increase your ranking to the first page of Google for your keywords. That is largely either untrue or they're doing something that might actually get you penalized, which is called, gray hat or black hat search engine optimization, which you simply want to stay away from. Or they're doing things that you'll learn in this very screencast. The best SEO strategy is to begin to generate and post keyword-rich content. There simply is no replacement for search engine optimization than great content. Over time, over months, or even years, your site will continually improve in the page rankings and in page reputation. Page reputation, by the way, is basically how heavily somebody weights the site, which is often how large it is, or how in alignment with basic best practices for search engine optimization it is. In other words, if it's clean, it's not using any black hat stuff, and also if it's big and has a lot of essentially, social reputation on the web. So both things are important. So PR is often referred to as page reputation, and that's a 1 through 9 scale. And I won't bore you on the numbers, but what it essentially means is if, say, I link to you and I say something about you, that's great. If, say, Apple or I think Adobe.com is actually one of the heaviest sites, although now that Google Plus is emerging, Google Plus might actually be rated heavier. But if you link to somebody from, Apple.com, well, then their page rankings skyrocket, because it's a site as huge with all the forums, with all the reputation, all the credibility of Apple.com. And so what other people are saying about you matters more than what you're saying about yourself. But you still want what you're saying about yourself to be in alignment with what's actually the content on your site. So page ranking and page reputation are two very different things, and one will help the other. Now, having said that, there's at least a half a dozen things you can, must, and hopefully with my guidance will do to stay out of your own way. WordPress is already a very search engine friendly platform, but there's a few things that you can do to assist yourself and to get you further up in those rankings for your desired search keywords. And that is to make sure that Google can at least see your content. So there's some basic do's and don'ts. After this list, we'll get into some mid-level strategies, as well as a few advanced tips. So, SEO tips, and here are the basics. First, avoid Flash like the plague. What is Flash? Flash, first of all, is dying as a platform as I record this. Flash is something that search engines actually can't see. And so if you have one of those cool animated entry pages to your site, because there's no HTML in that, and no XML, unless of course your web designer has developed an XML site map for you. But for the most part, you simply want to avoid Flash. The search engines can't see past it, and they can't see what's in it either. It's just a Flash file. So for all those cool style points, you actually lose search engine ranking. When you post articles, and you should always be posting articles anytime you think about something or watch some bit of silliness out in the world, you can write an article about it because you realize, oh, they need to know this. And you use that as fuel for yourself to write articles and create content. Of course, writing titles and headlines is a skill to develop. And I think I mentioned this earlier in the course, but on this site, there's an article that is social media and you, or something like that. Basically, it covers a wide roundup of resources. One of those resources is a link to writing better headlines and article titles. You're going to want to familiarize yourself with that. But basically, you want to make the actual titles as keyword rich as possible, as descriptive as possible. This will help your search engine optimization. You also want to dribble keywords in early and often in the body text. What does that mean? That means the first couple paragraphs should really have keywords that match not only the title and the subject of the post, but also what people are searching for. Now, this isn't something you want to use to constrain yourself too much as a writer. You want to really, write freely. But at the same time, it helps if you have that in mind. Also, one of the things that Google will penalize you for is if the title of the article or the meta keywords in the title tags for the page do not match the content on your website or on the web page. You'll actually get penalized for it. You'll get pushed down in the ratings, and if you really abuse it, then they'll push you down in the rankings to page 100 for a while until you clean up your act. Only use meta keywords and meta tags that match the text in the body of your website. Don't use anything that's irrelevant or not relevant. It's simply what we call link bait. Don't do that. And use a dynamic database-driven platform for your site. We've already talked about that, though. You should be using WordPress. You should at least be using WordPress or Drupal or Joomla. And any of those three, WordPress is the most search engine friendly out of the box. Although some Drupal fanatics might argue with me on that, but they're at least comparable. And Joomla takes a little bit more tweaking. It's gotten better, but there's plugins for that. But you just want to make sure that you're using search engine friendly URLs, which means that there are actual keywords from your article titles in those URLs. In addition, by the way, the reason you want to use a database-driven platform for your site is it's simply faster. So it's constantly updating, and Google likes fresh. In fact, I think last week it was released, they're actually using freshness as 30% of your page ranking. So it's becoming more and more important that it's not only database-driven, but that you have fresh content. There's little things you can do like have a Twitter plugin on your site, so there's dynamic content on your site. But you just want to make sure that that's happening. And if you have images, make sure that the alt tags also are keyword rich. So you should not insert an image without also inserting what the title of that image is. And you can simply use title tags for that, tags that are your keywords that you want people to find you with. Okay, so next is SEO mid-level tips. And let's talk about page rank. Your page rank has to do with several things. Your page reputation of the site that links to you, your content and how much content you have and how keyword rich it is, your avoidance of black hat strategies, and therefore the Google cops, and the relevance of your actual URL. The relevance of your content to searches X, Y, and Z, depending on which people are searching for what, and that's page rank. So let's move on to mid-level strategies. First of all, install an SEO component or plugin on your site. There's a few of them out there for WordPress. I encourage you to research them and find the highest rated one. And remember that you don't have to do any of this. This is just ways to increase your visibility. Send out a press release using a web-based service. This is huge, and we'll talk about this further. Find ways to have people with large sites link to you. And comment on blogs, and you want to be relevant and on topic. You want to add value, of course. And then link to your own site. You can link in the comment section. You can also just make sure that your site is in part of your profile or what have you. But find large sites with high page reputation. In other words, big sites where you can comment and make sure, again, it's relevant. And then, of course, go ahead and link to yourself. Use sites like Twitter, YouTube, Google+, etc. to link to yourself. And send out another press release. Press releases are really powerful ways to increase your page reputation and your page ranking, as well as get a lot of traffic to your site. You post article teasers or segments on article sites. You want to be careful about this. You want to link to yourself, letting them know they can read the rest on your site. However, it has to be at least 20% different than the content on your site. Otherwise, Google considers it basically cheating. So you want to make sure that the content is at least 20% different, or else their algorithm will pick it up as cheating. And you can also be a guest author on someone's high PR site or blog. And this will drive a tremendous amount of traffic to your site, depending on, of course, how much traffic they have. And that is all about building a relationship by commenting with them, or it could also be on the strength of your own writing. And then, of course, you want to install an XML map, especially if you're using something other than WordPress. But even if you are using WordPress, sometimes this can help. But you shouldn't really need that if your site is optimized correctly. It can help, and I think Google actually has some best practices for that. They may even have a whole section on XML maps. Heck, there might even be an XML map Google plugin for WordPress, for all I know. In fact, I would research that first if I were you. But this can also assist you in having your site be more easily seen, more visible. And finally, the last thing I'm going to recommend you is you go and get a Google Analytics account. And they give you a snippet of code. You can easily insert it to your site, and it tells you all sorts of stuff about your traffic. Now, there's also plugins for this, so you may not even have to deal with the code, but the code's pretty straightforward. You would just create a text widget, an invisible text widget in WordPress, and you would insert the code into your theme. It's really straightforward. It tells you, where people are coming from, where the traffic's coming from, how much traffic you're getting, which pages they're visiting, how long they're on your site, whether they bounce immediately, because they thought it was a mistake that they got there, or what have you. It's very, very useful, and really you can't have a good search engine optimization strategy without using Google Analytics. It's just an incredibly valuable feedback loop. Oh yeah, and it's free. You simply can't have a search engine optimization strategy or know how well your strategy is working without installing Google Analytics. So here are your tasks for this week. First, create a Google Analytics account for your site. Go ahead and go do that as soon as this is over, as soon as this screencast completes. Make sure your WordPress site has the appropriate URL structure. We should have gone over this in your tutorial, but you want to make sure that your URL structure has not the number like so the default for WordPress is that it has your domain name and then it'll say question mark and then the post number. Now it's really great because it's shorter. It's like just your domain name / question mark, equals 123, right? Post number 123. Except that doesn't mean anything for search engines. So you want to go ahead and go back into the dashboard of your site and make sure that your settings are such that your URLs actually have the title in the URL. It's probably already that way, but you just want to make sure of that. Create a prweb.com account. This is for press releases. You'll want to make sure that they allow you to insert links into it and stuff like that. I think it's about $100 per press release. You might be able to find one that's less expensive, but prweb.com is the one that you can count on. And what this does basically, by the way, is nowadays most news is aggregated with bots. So Google News, picks up Associated Press, New York Times, etc. Picks all this stuff up. And it used to be that when you put out a press release, you'd have to fax it to newsrooms, hope that it was newsworthy enough for some journalist to get interested enough in it to actually publish it in the newspaper. Well, none of that's necessary anymore. Now you can simply submit your own press release, link to your own site heavily, and you can talk about your offering. And so what you want to do is create a PR web account and then draft a press release for your offering. Coach in XYZ city has a new approach to XYZ problem for, men and women of age, like blah, blah, blah. And just go into actually your offering. And if you don't know how to write a press release, there's probably plenty of examples. Just, Google's your friend, and go ahead and use that and search for draft press releases. You can probably also pick up a great audio product on how to write a press release. If you don't want to do that, you just want to throw money at it. People will write a press release, and I think even prweb.com has press release writing services. Although I encourage you to learn the skill just for your own copywriting skill chops. It's a really important skill to have. It will assist you with your marketing in so many ways. And again, keywords early and often. And then grab a practice partner and practice the entire sales system from initial contact to the reviewing of the agreement. That's your final task for the week. Hope you're having fun. Next week, we're going to begin to tile this together. We've got 2 more weeks really to wrap all this up and to make it all make sense to you. Thank you for allowing me to contribute to you. I'm Jason McClain, your host here, and your guide in the 21st century marketplace.